Welcome to another episode of Days of Happy. We are joined by my friend Karen Manthey. Karen is the founder of Motivational Leadership, a business that she launched with her husband to spark positive change through communication, connection, and leadership development. She also serves as vice president of the nonprofit Comedy Sports Boise. There, they bring the power of improv to strengthen communities. And of course, I'm reading this part. I didn't memorize all this stuff. She is also the media spokesperson for Brighton Corporation. She has this innate ability to blend humor, heart, and expertise, and to show how laughter can be a powerful tool for mental health and resilience. If you're ever around Karen, you'll see why laughter is legit. Sorry for the long introduction, but thanks for joining us, Karen.
So happy. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Marie. So excited to be here.
You and I have shared the stage in a couple of events, and your energy is contagious, and it's so fun to see the audience get into it. I want to understand how you figured out that connection of comedy and mental health.
Oh, good question. I feel like it's just been years of because my background is improv comedy and it's just having improv has that yes and mindset. How do I yes and a situation, even if it's not a good situation? And I have seen that over the years that the more I practice that yes and mindset and I can laugh through the stressful situations, it just has elevated my mood more and more. And so I started teaching that to others, how to just laugh through the hard times and start asking yourself, what will be funny about this later? When you start looking at it in the terms of how am I going to be able to laugh about this in a few months or a few years, it really changes your perspective and it really can help elevate your mood, reduces cortisol, and it reduces that stressful moment right when it's happening, which is really cool.
When was the first time you realized that this could have some serious impact in the realm of mental health?
Oh, yeah. Well, man, I've had a lot of experiences. I did have one really funny, I mean, in the moment, it was terrible experience, but I was driving my car up a Horseshoe Bend Hill
Uh-huh.
and it started making a sound like a groaning pig and it was like dying. And we didn't know what was going on. We pulled off. Luckily, there was a little outlook to pull off and the car caught fire. And we were with a group of teenagers. We had just taken a group of teenagers rafting. We jumped out of the car. Everyone was safe, and the car is just burning to the ground. And in that moment, we had that opportunity. Am I going to laugh? Am I going to cry? We were just in shock for a moment. But man, we started laughing and I was surrounded by positivity. These teenagers, this was the coolest thing ever. And so they just were like, I hope it explodes. And I'm like, me too. It was so exciting and so funny. And so we started taking pictures of all of us in front of the van and it's burning. And the year was 2020. And we just felt like this is the epitome of 2020. And being able to laugh through that, I've shared that story and I share it in a keynote that I share all over the place. And it gets people realizing you can laugh even in the worst circumstances. And then we started having fun with it. I was texting my neighbor who's a mechanic and texting him pictures of the car on fire. And I said, hey, could you fix this? There's something wrong with our car. And we the fire department showed up and they were all volunteer firefighters and they had never put out a car fire. So this was their first car fire. They were so excited. And because we were laughing and cracking jokes, they felt safe to laugh with us. And then they were like, do you mind if we use the jaws of life to bust it open? And they were so excited. And it just ended up being one of the best, the top memories in our family. We have that picture framed in our house now. And my daughter who was with us just said it literally is one of her top memories of all time because it was such a positive experience, even though our car literally burned to the ground.
Well, what I love about that story is the fact that it made it a safe environment for multiple people. When they show up, first of all, it's a credit experience. If that happened in my car, it's like, oh my freaking days. I can already tell you that right now. And
Yeah.
more for the love. But that
Hmm.
laughter made it. And if I reacted like that, everyone else around me is reacting the same. So the
Exactly.
inverse is true when you utilize laughter, that it can impact not only yourself, but it is without really understanding. I guess anger was contagious too, contagious, and it makes you fear, it makes you feel cruddy and blah, blah, blah. But hearing this story makes me realize that the opposite is true too, that
Yes.
it can really join together people in a way that really could have put on a lot of emotional duress. And
Absolutely. All of our emotions are contagious, and it depends on what you put out there. What if I had been surrounded by adults and they're all freaking out and call your insurance, and and I was crying, they would have felt anxious and awful for me. But because these teenagers aren't thinking about that and they were just like, this is the coolest, I suddenly was like, this is the coolest. This is a once in a lifetime experience. And it was contagious. And I think that's what humor does for us. It's a connector. And when we utilize it and when we can use laughter, it will actually reduce our stress hormones. It reduces cortisol. It bumps up our endorphins. It makes you feel good. It has all the feel good hormones that you need. And then it helps other people feel good around you.
so the next part is a two-stage question, if you will. And the first one is, when have you seen someone that has been impacted in such a way that they come out, oh my goodness, thank you. And what was the context? And then the other thing, closely related to that, everyone has a cruddy day, even the funniest comedians and so on and so forth. And how do you pull out of stuff like that?
That's a great question. It happens every time I train. So when I train, I always have people often people are very concerned when they say, my background is improv. So if they say we're bringing in an improviser for some communication training or team building,
Yeah.
I will get all demographics and I will get people like, I'm not doing this. She's going to make me perform, or she's going to put me on the spot. And that's not what I do at all. I actually teach through gameplay. And so I purposefully play games that will get people laughing instantly. And my favorite, honestly, is when I have somebody who's like, I don't think I'm going to try this. I don't want to try it. And I'm like, come on, just be brave, try this game and see what you think. And then they're the ones that are just crying with laughter because they see how ridiculous this is, or how a game that seems like it should be easy is hard. And then they're laughing through it because I put them in positions where they're going to fail and that they
Yeah.
can laugh through it. And then they learn some big life lessons through it, which is pretty cool.
You know what's pretty cool about that is there's another organization that I was interviewing where they teach kids how to skateboard. And the
Yeah.
first thing they do is they teach them how to fail and have fun doing it.
Okay.
Literally, they go in, hey, let's go fail today. Yeah, that
Yeah.
kind of thing, right? And so they
Like,
embrace
yeah, in football, you
learning.
need to learn how to be tackled, right? You need to learn how to get back up and how to pivot. And so
Yep.
that's what I focus on a lot. I build their confidence when they feel
Yeah.
when they fail and then get up again. When you are trying hard at something and you don't do as well at it, you fail at it, your brain actually is creating new neural pathways to solve that problem faster next time. So then you just get better and better. So I often am teaching how to laugh through failure, and why failure is such a great teacher because we just get better and better.
In your estimation, what do you think is the number one contributor of especially emotional duress amongst teens?
And when you say emotional duress, are you meaning just these hard, heavy feelings that they're constantly
Yeah.
feeling?
Yep.
Depression, anxiety.
Exactly.
We're seeing this all over the place. And I personally feel it is a loneliness epidemic. I think
Mhm.
people are stuck on their phones. They're not connecting face to face and not getting that social aspect of how to hold a conversation, how to laugh with your friends. And when that connection starts to be built, that's actually when it starts pumping up those endorphins and you start feeling better and feeling more positive. So I
Yeah.
would say it all comes down to connection.
Yeah. Connection is definitely an amazing thing. Ironically, one of the first places we ever spun together was Connection is the Cure,
Oh, that's
right?
right. It was, wasn't it? Which I think that's so true. Connection really is the cure to everything.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's so many different ways to help with depression and anxiety. And just one of the aspects that I utilize is humor. And so
Yep.
that's kind of my emphasis and focus.
Now, I'm going to go back to the second part of the original question, and that was when you're in a funk, how do you get out of it? Because every a lot of people say you're stoked all the time. Oh, heck no, I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah. We all have our down days or our blue periods,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's a great question. often, sometimes if I just am, I'm an extrovert, so I really feel like I recharge when I'm around people.
Mhm.
But if there are those times when I just am like, I am peopled out. My daughter got married this weekend, and we've had so much family and so many events going on that by the end of the weekend, I was like, I am just peopled out. I just need a break. And so sometimes I'll watch comedy, or I will. That's actually how I was decompressing. I was like, I just want to be by myself, and I watched some stand-up comedy. Watch Nate Bargatze, and sometimes it's a fun movie, or my husband and I are sharing funny memes with each other. But I'll try and
Yeah.
find those moments just to laugh. And I don't know, Maurice, have you ever heard of laughter yoga? Do you know what this is?
I'm
It
laughing
sounds
already just
it
hearing
sounds
about it.
ridiculous. And I'm not an expert on it, but I took a laughter yoga class once and I was such a skeptic. I was like, this is the dumbest thing. This is so dumb. But what's really fascinating about it is that your body cannot tell the difference between simulated laughter and real laughter. So if you're just
Ah,
making the sounds of ha, 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 ha,
yeah,
your
yeah.
body is actually doing the same thing that it would do if you're really laughing. So I had a
Huh.
laughter yoga coach walk me through like doing these ha 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 ha
Yeah.
ha ha, and we're walking around the room and doing this laughter. And at first I was like, this is so stupid. By the end of the class, I was laughing so hard I was crying. I could not handle, my body was just releasing all of this tension, and it was actually really incredible. So even if you don't feel like laughing, if you start simulating laughter, you
Right.
actually are creating the same feelings that your body would create with real laughter, which is really cool.
That's really cool because there's another thing someone told me there. They were telling a story about how a church leader came across his dad, and his dad was noticeably frustrated, very frustrated, and didn't know what to do. And this church leader, I won't say who this is, but they're very well respected, and very well recognized. And he goes, go into the other room and scream without screaming. So he went into the other room and he like did that. If you're not watching a video, what I do is that, but without having the come out.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And this guy's a doctor that recommended it. So a church leader, there's a doctor. And what happened was he felt a lot better than he did before because, to your point, laughing about it, even in an imaginary context, but in this case, it was a real context, and he just needed a release. It was just that act of going through that there's a particular release. So very
Yeah.
interesting to
It's
see.
fascinating.
Yeah, right? Oh my goodness. Well,
I
now,
once,
oh,
I
go ahead.
once, oh, I once directed a high school play, and it was satire. It was an Oscar Wilde play. And the first few nights, the audience wasn't laughing. And I was like, these, maybe it's a high school students. They're not. I was like, these are funny parts. Why are people not laughing here? And I realized they just weren't understanding like they just weren't understanding where the humor was, and they
Yeah.
weren't getting that it was all satire. So we put plants in the audience, and I put three different people in the audience the next night to laugh at the right places. And what happened was the audience was rolling by the end of that night. They were laughing so hard. We got a standing ovation. Our actors had done nothing different. It literally was just getting people laughing, and everybody started laughing together. And then suddenly it was this shared experience, and it made it so much better for everyone involved, which I still think about that, and how laughter can trigger
Yeah.
connection in that way.
You bring up another point, and that's a shared experience. If you think of shared experiences, they go one of two ways. At least this is just my own experience. Either it's going to be a group think experience where they're doing something and they're making assumptions that something is wrong. And I think of another story, and I know I've repeated this before, but there was a candid camera back in when it
Oh
was
yeah.
early days of candid camera. Dude goes on an elevator and he notices everyone's facing backwards instead of forward, right?
Yes,
You
I
remember
remember this
this?
one. Yes,
Yes, man. And then he's trying to be cool, and then all of a sudden he turns around and joins the crowd.
because he
But
wants to be a part of it, right? We
exactly.
want to feel like a part of the group in some
Yep.
way. Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a shared experience, but in that case, it was also I didn't even challenge my own assumption and go, why is everyone facing the back, right?
Yeah.
So we get to that point, and sometimes we get in that point where, and tell me if I'm wrong in this, but we get to the point where it might be a negative context to that because even though it's a shared experience, has anyone ever tested that assumption of
Yeah.
why that?
Be brave enough to say, why are you guys all being weird? Like, what's
Yes.
happening? You have to be brave.
Well, and then the other one that was really cool is there's this experimenter was noticing this guy, the lone dancing guy, and he's just dancing.
Yes, I
You
love
remember
that
this?
video. Yes.
Yes. And then pretty soon, one other person, and then another. And then at one point, I can't remember the number, they said that once it hits this point, it spreads like
Everybody.
wildfire.
You can recreate that. Honestly, I feel like the bravest person there is
Yeah.
the second person who stands up to dance. Because
100%.
if it's just the one guy, then
Yeah.
people are like, oh, he's the weird guy and we can all
Yep.
judge him. But the second guy is like, I'm going to join you. If we have that bravery, then
Yes.
you can get everybody joining in. And that's a type of guerrilla theater, which is pretty cool. People don't realize they're a part of the
Something.
audience or yeah,
Yes.
it's fun. Done some fun experiments with that.
Well, that also leads me to another question. So when someone is so, and let's say that this is someone going through a really hard time and there's a ton of emotional duress, or maybe they've held to something so long that it is literally spiraled out of control. They feel hopeless. Humor has a hard time getting to them. What do you see as a longer term thing that you could do and without being a mental health professional? And I
Yes.
add that too is I'm not a mental health professional. I just really like to see people happy and overcoming in whatever it might be.
Great. That's a really great question. I wish I had an amazing answer for you. Something that came to mind as you were talking is remember the Sandy Hook shooting? And
Yes.
that was just so tragic. And I remember it was a few days after the shooting, one of the parents was getting up on the stage to speak on behalf of the parents. And he was laughing with somebody off stage and people started trolling like who is this guy, his kid just got killed and why is he laughing and so I went into kind of I was taking some college classes at that time and went into a deep dive in grief and why you need humor with grief and that kind of thing. But I can remember how the research that I found was you have to have those breaks of if you're in this downward slope and you don't ever break from it, then it's almost like the pressure gets so hard that
Mhm.
you wouldn't be able to handle it. You would be crushed by the pressure. But having those moments to laugh or to release some of that tension and pressure helps. It's almost like a palate cleanser or just a little mental break of there are still good things in life. And so
Yes.
I've had personal experience with that. My brother committed suicide years ago, and it
Mhm.
was tragic. And so, it was such a dark time and it was so horrible. But I still remember when we were having this wake for him and we were sharing stories and laughing about the hilarious pranks he used to play on us or what we did or the things that suddenly we were confessing like sorry mom, we actually snuck out into this and we're all laughing. It was so needed in that moment. So I think when people say there's nothing to laugh about or nothing to smile about, you have to start maybe a little smaller and remember what's not wrong. Like what is something that is good right now, or take those moments to just remember the funny times and see if you can laugh through it even when you're in the darkest pain, because sometimes that's when humor can save lives.
Yes. Yes. Matter of fact, you've even opened up something that made me think of two particular experiences. One is I was interviewing Sean Covey. This was a few years back. I ran into a place that called Bridle Up Hope. It was this thing about horses. And I asked him on the interview, last time I was in Utah, I saw this. And can you tell me a little bit about that? And what happened, it was a tragedy. His oldest daughter had passed away, and he had said that it was unbearable, something to that extent. It was some kind of intensity, right? And as he was there, he thought he could never be happy again. And so, as they're at the funeral, there were multiple kids that came up to him and he goes, I just want you to know how much she impacted my life. And they would go on to explain that when she took us horseback riding or took us this way, that it helped me overcome a lot of things that I was going through. And as a result of that, a great thing started up. It's called Bridle Up Hope. And it was interesting because in the darkest moments, there's still those beacons of light that really start to percolate and show that there are those things. It's just a matter of getting there is what I have found.
Sunbursts of beauty.
Oh,
Just those moments of beauty that you have to cling to, especially when you're in the depths. Yeah. Tell
really,
me your next
really.
story.
Well, the next one is I've already shared this one with you, and that was I'm a 9/11 survivor.
Right. Yeah.
And I, I just witnessed the collapse of the towers. I had just gotten out of a building that was less than 100-yard proximity from ground zero, and we're walking out and just in in shock, if you will.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I remember in the midst of that tragedy, we didn't know, I knew there were a lot of people that had passed away. I didn't
Mhm.
know the magnitude of it. And I made my way up to the Upper East Side where I was living at the time. And one thing that I remember is that there were, now keep in mind, this is New York, other New Yorkers waiting to pick up people for a ride. There were trucks filled with people that they were taking up. There were restaurants along the way opening up their bathrooms for people to utilize. They had those 10-gallon buckets for people to get water going out. This never happens in New York, man.
Right.
Like,
Like
and
all the
I just,
helpers that come out.
yeah. And it was that humanity of caring that really started to emulate and give a beacon of not only hope, but it was just this feeling of unity that I will never forget. So when you bring up connection, connection is vitally important. And I know that when I've been in my dark places, that's usually the first thing I want to negate.
I
Just
know it's so easy because I want to isolate and protect myself and put on the shell, but you have to go against that feeling. Even they say that connection is the opposite of addiction,
Mhm.
where the more you're connected and the more the longitudinal study that they've done with Harvard and the happiness study, that's the longest study ever done, it all comes down to the relationships and the connections that have been built. So
It's
important. I love that
it's
9/11 story that you share.
I found that and I'm wondering if it's the same with you, everyone that I have seen that has overcome or been through a very traumatic experience like that, they usually find some little pieces or nuggets of not only wisdom, but of impact that it really does help not only the individual themselves, but it inevitably unites others. That's how I've always seen it. But anyway, how about you?
I love that. No, absolutely. I feel like some of our best memories as a family, we've had a lot of adventures and a lot of mishaps. And honestly, those are the best memories where we look at it later. It was so stressful in the moment, but looking at it later, we are laughing through it where we're on a car trip and the kid is throwing up and the dog's head is out the window and the car tire pops at the right moment. And you're just like, this is the worst thing going on right now in my life. And later we are cry laughing because we're recounting how all the emotions were playing and how we were all feeling. I had that this weekend. Actually, my daughter was her new mother-in-law had given her some earrings to wear with her wedding dress as like her something borrowed. And we were pulling it out of the car and it's like this beautiful diamond and pearl earrings, dropped them. One
Oh,
skittered across the garage floor under the fridge. And so my daughter and I, she's got her hair beautiful, makeup and everything. We are on the ground trying to find this really expensive earring and just so stressed. I was like, I don't care if her dress gets ruined. I'm worried about this earring that's not ours. And it was in the moment, it was so stressful. But as soon as we got it out, we were laughing so hard. We're like, we're never going to forget that she's just like getting ready as a bride and she's on the garage floor like digging through the lint trying to find this earring. It's so funny and it was the most stressful part of the day, but everything turned out fine and we can laugh about it now. So it's great.
I love how you find that laughter and everything around you, and just seeing how you live your life. It's obvious that that's something that really attracts people to what the things that you do, but also the influence that you've been able to have on other people. I mean, it's been profound. Uh,
Maurice, I
so,
feel that way about you too. You have such a
oh,
high energy and love of life that I think people just connect to you and they want to emulate you a little bit.
it's so well, it's so fun because you have all these people that are so stoked, and sometimes people don't realize that people in and of themselves are exactly what others need.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Yes, it's so true.
And that's the thing about getting into those places, that I appreciate how you get them out there, because it's like, forget myself, let's go. And then
Yeah.
in that process, they start to understand a lot more about what they're going through, and it gives them connections to share stuff with. The
Right.
common experience again is a very powerful thing.
It suddenly feels safe, right? Yeah. When
Yeah.
people have share their experiences. I love that.
Oh my goodness. Well, is there anything that comes top of mind that you'd want to share with the audience here? Because you are a treasure trove of cool stories and experiences.
I would just say, wow, if I had some parting words, I would say just try and find the funny in your day to day. There's something that you start collecting those stories, because when you're having a down moment, you'll realize I'm going to be able to laugh about this later. I'm going to laugh. Not everything in life is funny. There's some tragic and really horrible things that happen, but we always will be able to come out of it. We can always find a way to lift ourselves, and laughter and humor, I think, is one of the top ways to do that. My name is Karen. I have to laugh at my name, right? I mean, being a Karen in 2025, when that first came out, I mean, there are Karens that I know that are so offended by the Karen memes. Man, I think they're hilarious. Let me be the entitled white woman that. And so when I am talking to customer service, I'm like, they know my name's Karen. I got to be extra nice because they know I'm a Karen. And I think it's so funny. Like, just laugh at it. Otherwise, you're going to have a terrible life. You got to get over being offended and instead just find the humor in the day to day. I think those would be my parting words.